Hold on, everybody. We're about ready to blast past 100K as MicroStrategy is on track to blast through their $42 billion Bitcoin purchase plan in 4 months. In a bombshell announcement just after they purchased $4.6 billion worth of Bitcoin for the largest transaction ever, they plan on raising another $1.75 billion at 0% interest rates to buy more Bitcoin. You're not bullish enough. MicroStrategy isn't the only institution that's going to be plowing into Bitcoin, as ETF options are set to begin trading even as early as today. And on top of that, Bitcoin sources in Washington, D.C. say that Donald Trump and his administration will launch the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve just a few days after they take office.
I went home with most of my wealth into Bitcoin, so I'm fully committed.
Opportunities like this don't come often. Don't get left behind. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's get into it. Every time MicroStrategy purchases another few $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, Coach Cook has one post-game speech that he gives in the locker room to all the Bitcoiners out there who stacked relentlessly when everybody doubted us.
It was a big time win, and you never flinched. You never even stumbled. This is gonna be one of the best high fives ever. Yeah. Give each other a high five.
If you've been in Bitcoin for long enough, you get this feeling that you never have enough Bitcoin.
Listen, I feel like I don't have enough. Sailor feels like he doesn't have enough. Nobody has enough Bitcoin.
MicroStrategy has the 4th largest Bitcoin stack in the world behind Satoshi himself, Binance, and BlackRock. Just after they announced purchasing $4.6 billion worth of Bitcoin, or 51,000 Bitcoin, they announced plans to raise another $1.75 billion so that they can purchase more Bitcoin. And they're borrowing at 0% rates. That 1.75 will likely become oversubscribed and become a $2 billion vehicle for them to purchase Bitcoin. Michael Saylor tells us exactly what he's going to do, and then he does it. It's not rocket science. And the most beautiful thing is, he's telling us why he's doing it.
I think it's like 41, 42 times we bought Bitcoin in that range. So ever since August of 2020, we keep buying, we don't sell. It's a very simple strategy. Bitcoin is Manhattan in cyberspace. I just want to keep buying Manhattan in cyberspace. I have this theory that one day 8 billion people want to put their money in Manhattan in cyberspace.
Bitcoiners in Washington, D.C. say that Trump and his administration will announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve just a few days after taking office. Let's go back to Michael Saylor, who tells us exactly what this means for the U.S. and for the world.
What does the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve mean? It means that Bitcoin is hope for the people, but it means that once the United States embraces Bitcoin as the world's reserve capital network and it builds that Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, the path is open for corporations in the United States to recapitalize on Bitcoin. And the path is open for banks to recapitalize on Bitcoin. And now corporations don't have to die. Banks don't have to die. Institutions are already off the hook. Individuals are already off the hook. For an endowment and for a family and for a private company, it's your choice if you choose the asset which is going up 60% a year or the asset which is going down 6% a year. That's your choice. But it was never a choice for the banks in the U.S. It was never a choice for operating companies in the U.S. And so what Senator Lummis is doing is really much more profound than we're going to buy some Bitcoin. What she is doing is she is laying the ethical, economic, technical foundation to revitalize the banking system in the U.S. and in the world, all the public companies in the U.S. and then the world, all of the institutions. And she's spreading the American way of life, the American ideology. And what will first happen is America will do it, but eventually every other country in the world, in Europe, in South America, in the Middle East, they will all look at what we're doing and they will follow us.
Other countries will see what we're doing and they will start participating in the Bitcoin story as well. Random people like presidential candidates in Poland say that they're going to adopt a strategic Bitcoin reserve if they're elected in office. But what about other major countries? The large countries, the G7 countries. And you know what? Forget the big countries and the nation states. It's not just the other countries that this is going to have a big impact on. Think about the major players in the United States market. People like Paul Tudor Jones, who's one of the most successful hedge fund managers of all time, who increased his Bitcoin position by 5 times to $159.9 million through the BlackRock ETF. And speaking of BlackRock and the ETF, more bullish news is coming for the Bitcoin adoption story in the form of institutions getting into this Bitcoin game. Because of the CFTC's recent announcement, ETF options are approved to begin trading on IBIT's product as early as today. This is massive, considering that the derivatives and options market are almost a $1 quadrillion market depending upon the sources that you look at. Take a listen to this conversation between Eric Balchunas and an executive from BlackRock on what this actually means.
You're the primary exchange for IBIT. So
yes.
You have basically the greatest launch of all time. And now we just got word over the past couple days that after the SEC approval, CFTC has approved and OCC, but this is like the bureaucracy. But it looks like all systems go. When can investors and traders expect to have options on IBIT and the other ones?
First, I couldn't agree with you more, Eric, on the success of IBIT and really all the spot Bitcoin ETFs that we've seen come to market going back to January. IBIT now over $40 billion, larger than the iShares Gold Trust ETF. It's, I think you pointed out last week, larger than the 2,800 ETFs that have launched in the past decade. So what a momentous milestone. The options development on IBIT is something that we've been working on over the past 10 months with BlackRock, with the regulators. And so as you said, over the past few days, the CFTC did put out an advisory on their stance with the options listed on IBIT. So we're working very closely with BlackRock and the OCC on these final steps. We've put out the necessary listing application documentation. And so our intent at NASDAQ is to list and trade these options, as early as tomorrow. So it should certainly be an exciting week.
There's already an insane amount of supply shock coming from the ETFs. I mean, just last week, ETFs purchased 6 times the amount of supply of Bitcoin alone. And what's crazy is retail hasn't even joined the frenzy. If you look at this chart, transaction volumes under 100K are starting to reach their highest levels in 3 years. Activity that we typically see during bull markets. So here's some advice. Before Bitcoin starts to go on a bull run or a tear that's historic for the ages, you should consider getting your house in order. And one of the best ways you can do that is scheduling a free consultation with the team at thebitcoinway.com. They will pair you with a self-custody, Bitcoin, and cybersecurity expert to help you navigate the future challenges of when your Bitcoin stack is worth a lot more than it is today. Do yourself a favor. Schedule a meeting with a cybersecurity expert who will help you navigate your Bitcoin journey and secure your financial freedom in the future. Schedule a free meeting with their team today at thebitcoinway.com. Okay, so in the short term, for those of you who didn't think that Bitcoin would ever go over 100K, Peter Schiff, it looks like it's going to comfortably blow past 100K. Listen to this clip from Tom Lee from Fundstrap on CNBC.
It does seem like Bitcoin is becoming more and more a hallmark of what this next administration is going to have. And it does solve some of the deficit concerns, if Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset, and it may solve some of the what I'd consider inherent problems of the current financial system. Bitcoin remains a very secure blockchain. So I think there's still a lot of potential for Bitcoin.
A recent time I asked you, still triple digits by the end of the year. I think we were around 70 or under 70.
I think comfortably over 100,000 makes sense before the end of this year, and Bitcoin is trading pretty closely to how it should post-halving. So I think the next 12 months look pretty good for Bitcoin.
One of the great things about Bitcoin is it's not just good for billionaires. It's good for everyday people. People like you and me who are working hard to save and store their value in something that's going to help them do the things that were sold to us in the American dream.
This is the part that really amazes me about this virtuous feedback loop. I've yet to find a party that is aggrieved or disenfranchised or hurt by Bitcoin's success.
That's right.
It's just remarkable to me that those that adopt Bitcoin, those that hold Bitcoin, those that champion Bitcoin, everybody can win. Everybody in that orbit wins. And I can't find who lost.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is one of those assets that when the price goes up, it doesn't alienate or disenfranchise other people. I mean, it's the only asset that's outside of the system that the people who manipulate it can't control. So when one person wins, everybody wins. And a small example of this is that one Bitcoin is now worth more than the average US retirement account at over $86,000. Regular savers are the people who are going to benefit the most from Bitcoin becoming widely adopted by the United States. And you don't have to be as smart as Michael Saylor to understand this. In fact, even Michael Saylor said that he was in despair when he realized that the system was rigged against him.
When I found Bitcoin, I was in despair. I had worked for a decade. I had spent 20,000 man years attempting to do everything under the sun. I could not get ahead. And I was the same me. I wasn't stupid. You look at me and say, well, this is Michael Saylor worked as hard as he could for a decade and could not get ahead. The most pernicious thing you can do to someone is you make them think that they're just not smart enough. And the reason they're failing is because they're not smart and they don't work hard enough. And then you realize, no, the system is rigged against you.
So when Bitcoin's price rips, resist the temptation to take a quick profit and sell your Bitcoin like Eric Weiss did in 2014. Eric Weiss is one of the guys who's a billionaire, but also one of the people that orange-pilled Michael Saylor. And he says that he's not even back to the levels that he was when he sold, even though he's been relentlessly stacking Bitcoin since 2016. Or don't be like Chamath, a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley who says that his Bitcoin stack would now be worth $4 or $5 billion more had he not sold it.
I actually think about all the Bitcoin I sold. That's a $3 or $4 billion mistake in growing now. I bought some land
I
in
remember
Lake
that,
Tahoe.
yeah.
It was in the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure you can find it, but
Yeah.
how much is that worth now? Probably a couple $100 million.
Over the long term, Bitcoin will disrupt the majority of the capital markets across the world. And so my advice is, when the price rips, resist the temptation to take a quick profit. Don't sell too early and hold for the long term. One of the best ways that you can resist the temptation of selling your stack too early is to get into real community, to meet real Bitcoiners in real life, and to educate yourself on why Bitcoin is what we've been saying that it was going to be for the past 10 years. One of the best ways that I can think of getting into real community and meeting real Bitcoiners in real life is heading down to Dallas, Texas. On April 3rd through April 6th, join me and several other Bitcoin OGs at the BitBlockBoom conference. BitBlockBoom is going to be a place where you get to meet some of the OGs in Bitcoin, listen to great speakers like Marty Bent and Parker Lewis. It's also going to give you opportunities to interact with Bitcoiners through workshops, like the workshops on Friday, or even through parties. All of this is covered in your ticket. Go to bitblockboom.com and use the promo code BBB21 for $100 off your ticket. So join me and the rest of the Bitcoiners who are always celebrating when Michael Saylor or anyone else is stacking more Bitcoin down in Dallas, Texas, April 3rd through April 6th of 2025 at the BitBlockBoom conference. And with that, we're signing off today. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. If you enjoy this content, make sure to subscribe to this channel and continue sharing these videos with friends and other people who need to understand what Bitcoin is and why it's valuable for them. We're signing off for the day. Happy stacking.